One I'm gonna leave behind.
That came up all the last couple of weeks, and
I had a whole.
I walk up and down College, I pick the kids up from school every day, and the amount of litter there is oppressive, right? And I know the street sweepers do a great job every day, but a lot of that gets kicked onto the sidewalks and the walkways and things, and I was wondering if there was a way that you could partner with a local waste management company to provide free bags to people who can pick them up and then either drop them at designated locations to incentivize people to help out.
Please. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm gonna call to order the Lacey Planning Commission meeting of May 22nd, 2024. It looks like everybody's here. Eddie will not be here. Oh, wait,
Elliot?
Elliot is
Not here.
he's not here. Have you heard from him?
I've not, just heard from Eddie.
I heard from Eddie. He's not going
I meant to
to
give
be here.
me one and do the rest.
So, everybody else is here. Daphne, would you like to read the latest land
You'll notice. Okay, yes, I would be.
I know I cut you off guard, I'm sorry.
I can read though, so it's okay. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of this land and since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize we have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allow our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854.
Thank you so much. And I just want to let the public that is watching know that we do read this acknowledgement at every meeting but it's not just reading it, we actually have embraced it. So I want to assure you of that. So next up is approval of the agenda and consent agenda items. And I understand Ryan has a change that he wants to introduce.
Yeah, just requesting if we can just switch the new business items. So we would go first with the comprehensive plan item and follow up with the critical areas ordinance item. I have a band concert to get to tonight.
That's kind of important.
Appreciate that.
Really important thing.
So I would be looking to have a motion on an amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and Gail is seconded. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? I would be looking for a motion on that.
Move the minutes be approved as written.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the April 24 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome. Next up is public comment, and we have an extremely distinguished guest with us tonight. Former Lacey mayor, first female mayor elected in Lacey, and former state senator Karen Fraser. So please.
Thank you. And former member of the Lacey Planning Commission.
Right.
Early 1970s when everything was brand new. So it didn't have all of it, right? I was worried about saying that. So where do you want me? Is this the?
Anywhere, so the microphone is in the ceiling, so as long as you're projecting well enough to be picked up with the
Okay,
microphone.
is it videoed or not?
It is.
It
Yeah,
is.
So
okay.
wherever you'd like to be.
Thanks, looks good then.
Okay.
Well, good evening. I'm Karen Fraser and I'm here tonight representing the Thurston County League of Women Voters. And Kirian advised me that you were going to talk tonight about the op-ed I had in the Olympian on the League of Women Voters water study. So I said, hey, I could come for a few minutes and fill you in a little bit more. And so she encouraged me, and so here I am. And I'm delighted to introduce Paula Holroyd, who was the chair of the League of Women Voters committee that studied all this. Took a few years, thanks to COVID and the complexity of the subject matter. So I have two handouts. This first one is really my summary remarks for And the other one is a little bit, is a portion, is a cover of the study and two of the chapters of the study. So what I'd like to say is I'd like to bring your attention first. Oh, this study is on the League of Women Voters webpage, the County League of Women Voters, and I gave a full copy to your staff. So I'd like to bring to your attention first the basic finding of the study of fresh water in Thurston County. It's the cover of our report. And what it does, it shows two projections. Projection of fresh water into the county going out to the year 2050, and virtually all that comes from precipitation, rain and snow. And that is across the bottom. So you'll notice for annual rainfall going out to 2050, the scientists project it'll be basically the same as we're getting now, annual. And then the red line going up is what Thurston Regional Planning Council projects is the population increase for the county. Notice, no increase in water, big increase in population. And that's what everybody needs to think about. But the picture is really a little more troublesome than just that. With climate change, the patterns of rainfall are going to change. They're starting to change now. With more of the rainwater, total rainwater coming in the winter, in bigger, you might say, clumps or bursts, and less of it in the summer. So think about the soils in the area. They can only absorb so much rainwater. So if you get more rain in one event, a smaller percent of it will go into the ground on an annual basis. So that means a very serious thing, which is that we're likely to have lowered amounts of groundwater. Very serious, because almost all water we use comes from pumping up groundwater. And then in our natural resources and environment, groundwater is essential to the streams. It's essential to keeping moist soils for timber and for plants and animals. So the picture is really a little bit worse than this, but this chart was prepared by Thurston Regional Planning Council. So as planning commissioners, this is a very huge overarching topic. I encourage you, the league encourages you to think about as you engage in planning. So let's see, and then attached to this picture of our cover are two chapters, and there's one that's as a result of the study, we came up with one policy recommendation, and it's kind of procedural. It's a recommendation that somehow in the county there be developed, there be established a long-range regional intergovernmental planning and coordination process to advance adaptation policies relating to fresh water. It's a little bit segmented right now how water planning goes on. So since you're in the planning world, we encourage you to do this. And then we also compiled, as we engaged in this study, a list of current and emerging strategies for addressing this, what's coming gap between water supply. Well, you may not, to keep it from being a gap. The projections are, flat water and more people, but some strategies that can be used. Number one, of course, is conservation and efficiency. Everybody can conserve more. Increase storage, there's various ways. Install water reuse infrastructure in new buildings and developments, as is on the second page of this little handout. Slow the flow of stormwater, so more of it will go into the ground. Protect surface and groundwater from pollution. Polluted water, you might as well say that's water we lose because we can't drink it. Reduce freeway pollution. Complete water quality plans mandated by the federal government. Fully engage in watershed planning and implementation. Increase the use of reclaimed water. I think Lot has some plans on this. Reprioritize existing uses of water, and there are ways to do this. engage in purchases and transfers of water rights. That's kind of a complicated world, but it's being done around here. Drill deeper wells, reduce landscape watering. Everybody can probably do a little of that. Assure healthy fish-bearing rivers, streams, and lakes. And we included desalination plants with a note that they're probably too expensive to do. And then chapter 4 is a little shorter and discusses actions that local governments and water purveyors can take. And then individual actions that we can all do to do our individual part on conserving water and make it go around better. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Paula. All right.
And just for the record, we didn't have anybody sign up for online public
Okay.
comment tonight.
Thank you. I was gonna ask that next. Okay, do any of the commission members have anything to report tonight?
I did get to attend the city council work session, and it was very interesting to hear their comments about some of the ideas to change a little bit about the recommendations. And I thought that was a very interesting discussion.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I watched it. I watched it on Zoom. I'm not sure that what they're pursuing can be met on some of the commercial districts. I mean, they're very, it seemed to me that the discussion was very hot about housing versus housing, much hotter about housing than about commercial enterprises, and much hotter about townhouses and multifamily tax exemptions on those properties. And I was a little surprised because when we listened to the community, to me, it was clear the community did not want dwellings on those parcels. And that I have yet to hear of anyone who has built a low-income accessible townhouse development. So I thought that probably was a nice idea, but not particularly feasible, and certainly not on those parcels. I mean, the major thrust of those parcels should be commercial with, as we said, with some, if we could do first floor low-income housing, or even, you know, second floor low-income housing, there's a second floor, but not as a housing opportunity for large groups of people. So that was my impression.
Thank you. Any department report tonight?
I was just gonna mention that the city council reviewed the planning commission's recommendation on the neighborhood commercial amendments last Tuesday night. It is at this point just the first meeting. They've asked staff to go back and provide a little bit more analysis and maybe some alternatives. So as Kieran and Gail mentioned, there were, I think, a couple focused topics, and it was quite obvious that they'd had the multifamily developers that are associated with, especially with those two remaining pieces of property in Northeast Lacey, come to them directly and provide comment. So they were very interested in, number one, the affordable housing requirement that basically the Planning Commission recommended that the ground floor retail have an affordable housing, be required to be affordable housing. They were interested in that concept, but wanted to look at how that might just be shifted so that it's not all on the ground floor, so that they could be interspersed throughout the development. They also brought up the idea of expanding the multifamily tax exemption to these areas. However, we're going to, as staff, I think, go back and do a little bit more analysis on this. Our feeling is that probably best not to look at the multifamily tax exemption on a specific, at this level. It probably needs to be looked at on a citywide level. And if we're going to be getting affordable housing through the multifamily tax exemption, there is a mechanism to be able to do that where we require the 12-year multifamily tax exemption as long as a certain portion is affordable. So we'll be diving a little bit deeper into that. They were also very interested in the townhome concept. And then also, they were very interested in the requirements for the 15-foot
Ceiling.
ceiling height. And so we have done a little ground truthing. We actually went to Tacoma on Friday and went to Proctor District. We went to Ruston, we went to DuPont. And so we went out with a big pole and actually measured some ceiling height. And did a little bike riding around, and so we'll have some recommendations for the council on potentially some flexibility on some of those ceiling heights. What we found was that 15 feet is definitely the most flexible. That's gonna allow pretty much any use you want to come in and out. But there are some scales where maybe 12, something like 12 feet would work as well, in some of the more kind of we'll say, the use is unlike a grocery store or a restaurant or something like that, so that's gonna have large HVAC equipment in it. Something like an office or something like that might be suitable for 12. So anyways, we'll come up with some options for the council to on that. I think and Gail talked to me earlier about this. I would recommend all the planning commission members go back if you have a chance and watch it. It's on YouTube. And Gail provided this as a little bit of frustration that, the council tended to kind of do their own thing. And kind of forget that the planning commission spent 1.5 years on this, that there was a significant amount of community feedback beyond just the 2 development interests that have kind of bent their ear. So if you do go back and watch, which I did suggest you do, just keep that in mind that, I think forgetting sometimes the amount of work and significant amount of community feedback we got on this. So stay tuned. We're coming back to them on June 11th. So their first work session in June. So it's right around the corner. So
We wouldn't be involved in GED at any point, correct?
you're welcome to attend.
No, but just as far as anything that gets changed, right?
No, so at this point, it's all in the council's hands as far as, the only thing would be if they kicked something back to the planning commission for further analysis or review or recommendation, but at this point, it's up to the council to do that.
Do you still have to announce this if more than a few attend that meeting?
As long as the planning commission is welcome to attend, as long as you're not, making motions and doing that kind of stuff. So, if you sat at the table with the council and that kind of stuff with a quorum, then yeah, absolutely, we need to do that. But if you're just in attendance, whether here or remote, we don't necessarily need to worry about that. So, yeah.
Right,
Any questions on that?
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, for Elliot's benefit, we switched the order of new business. Ryan has an extremely important band concert today. So we're gonna start with the comprehensive plan.
All right, give me a second. Share screen.
You may be required to share video after the fact.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty good. They're pretty talented.
Yeah, it's my son, he's a senior, and this is his last jazz band concert. So,
Sure, they're
That's
pretty good.
incredible. It's not easy.
Yeah, Olympia does not take music lightly. They are quite talented.
Well, by the time they're seniors, they're pretty good too, so.
Right?
So, just got a quick presentation for you tonight to kind of prime the pump a little bit as far as what will be coming down the road for community engagement around our comprehensive plan. So we've been working with the consultant team and we are just about ready to receive basically a draft engagement plan that staff will be reviewing, and then ultimately will come to the planning commission for review as well. But we wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a head start tonight, if you will, on what will be included in that engagement plan. This is your opportunity to kind of provide a little bit more feedback on what could be included in the engagement plan. And then also towards the end, we've got some of I'm gonna kind of unveil some of our branding. So our comprehensive plan tagline and some logo ideas that you'll be able to weigh in as well. So with that, we'll just go ahead and get started here. So few goals about the purpose of the plan. So again, this is the public engagement plan. We want to make sure that we are building broad awareness about our comprehensive plan. So these are the broad goals about like, why do we want to get people engaged? We also want to educate people about the plan's relevance. We've been telling people for the last several years that, oftentimes it's not the best to get involved when it's not the best time to get involved when you have some short-term decision-making in front of you. The best time to get involved is during these long-range planning, things and early in the process. And so really creating that kind of education awareness there. And then making sure people participate in the full process. So not just participate at the very beginning or at the end when the decisions are made, but keep the continuity throughout the process so people participate through that whole full process. So a couple of things to keep in mind is number one, there's a communication strategy, which basically sets forth how will we communicate, and then it's the engagement strategy, which is kind of what will we be communicating. So the goal of the communication strategy is to implement an effective communication strategy to promote community engagement opportunities and build interest in the comprehensive plan. And this is really also focusing on building awareness among hard to reach communities. We have, and we've talked to you guys a little bit about this, and definitely if you got other ideas, then we'd love to hear it. But our hard to reach audiences that we're at least starting with, number one is youth and young adults. So we heard through outreach that we'd done to the youth council that, that was really, they felt like they weren't necessarily involved or being heard through our previous comp plan updates. They might have been 4 or 5 years old. And then also we did some surveying of all of our various boards and commissions and found that really like for planning commission, the parks board, the historic commission, those kinds of folks, we really don't have anybody on those boards and commissions that are in that age range. So part of this as well is trying to get people engaged in the city's kind of day-to-day business as well. So it's not only just the comprehensive plan, but it's like, getting people involved and engaged in their kind of civic duties, if you will. Another big part is the renting community. So again, kind of like the youth and young adults segment, which I think there's a lot of overlap between renters and the youth and young adults segment, is that renters really aren't represented very well in our boards and commissions either. Most people are homeowners. So we've started with some early outreach to some property management companies and some of the actual multifamily complexes themselves to try to engage renters more. And then equity priority communities as well. So that's, folks that we don't necessarily hear from, people that maybe English isn't their first language, that don't necessarily participate in these types of kind of city events or city comprehensive plan updates. So this goes into a little bit more about how we'll reach those groups. So youth and young adults, number one there is to prioritize our online engagement. So that's really web-based and social media. When we did talk to the youth council, they said, so they did the same visioning session that you guys all did, the same mentee exercise on your iPads. And if you remember, there was a question towards the end that had the sliding scale. What do you prefer, online or in person, or hosting events or attending events? And they were really strong on the online segment. They were really wanting that online engagement. So focusing on that with that population. Looking at potentially educational games, that's more kind of would be geared toward students at our local schools, and then some events staged at popular locales. So it's really hard to find like where the 18 to 30 population is like on an evening in Lacey, but I think we're talking about restaurants. We're talking about those kinds of things. So stay tuned. I think, that's yet to be determined, but that's kind of the direction we're headed at this point.
Have you thought about doing like online charrettes with youth?
Yeah, so one of the engagement tools we're looking at doing is, it's not necessarily an online charrette, but it's a program called Maptionaire, and it's a way to use an interactive map to kind of highlight different areas of the city that you may be interested in, or different transportation routes, or those kinds of things that provide, that's something that can be open at any time. You can get on there any time of day, those kinds of things. So online charrettes, charrettes are, I think, typically done a little bit in person, where you're around a table, you're, sketching stuff up and sharing ideas. I think we're trying to figure out a way that we can do that online through that mapping program.
Okay.
And then renters, like I mentioned, we're partnering with those larger complexes. and property management companies as well. And then the equity priority communities, making sure that we have materials that are translated, leveraging our local cultural events. We do have our cultural festival, which we've missed for this year, but will be coming up in 2025. And then partnering with local schools, so reaching parents through kids, and that gets back to some of the educational part of this as
Do you
well.
do anything through the social group at social groups at the various ethnic churches? You know, the
Yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
churches?
we've got a number of Korean, Vietnamese, so definitely wanna hit those as well, yeah.
On the City of Lacey websites, Facebook page is pretty popular, right?
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is, yeah.
you see things on there all the time.
Lacey Fun Fair was was like,
Last weekend.
oh, they did such a good job with all the
Yes.
social media on that. Oh my gosh, I just felt like I was there. It was so cool. They did a great job.
So that talked a little bit about how we're gonna communicate. So now we get into the kind of more the community engagement, like what are we gonna do? Collaboration with local community-based organizations. Right now, it is very popular to actually provide stipends to community-based organizations to participate. So it's a way for those kind of membership groups and those kinds of things to provide small amounts of money to their various groups to be able to participate. So hopefully that might bear some fruit. In fact, the state is actually giving some community-based organizations grants to participate as well. So making sure that this is informing our decision-making, making sure that this engagement is kind of pulled into what we'll be recommending ultimately in terms of goals and policies. Leveraging our existing community engagement efforts, so making sure that we're building on kind of our past efforts, making sure that we're, combining this with other things related to housing or climate or, just our ongoing engagement that we're doing, Facebook, those kinds of things as well. Making sure that we're identifying barriers to participation and ways to reduce them, creating opportunities for inclusive and equitable participation. So we're also kind of focusing on different areas of Lacey that have maybe a higher renter population and those kinds of things, more diversity in some of those neighborhoods. And then building long-term capacity for civic engagement around planning and development. So, again, this gets back to kind of the idea of having kind of this be almost like a little bit of a civics 101 kind of primer for people so that they continue to engage along the way. So it's not just, well, we just participate now, but that we're participating throughout the process. And then ensuring that we're accountable. So making sure again that we're putting in, the goals and policies that we're recommending are those that the community is recommending. And that, we're hearing loud and clear from them. Oops, if I go to do that as well. So what we're looking at in terms of timelines, first of all, we're breaking it down into 4 different phases of community engagement. And so right now, the phase that we are in is visioning. And so that's like the visioning exercise that you did. We will also be reaching out starting this summer and going to the community and asking them maybe similar questions, maybe not the same, but kind of, what do they want to see for the future? Just starting at a very broad level. As we move down, we then get into, well, then if you want to, see your vision happen, how do you do that through prioritization? So we can't do everything all at one time. What would the community's priorities be? Having those, both the vision and the community priorities inform the draft plan, and then ultimately developing that final draft plan. And then those little orange bubbles are just kind of showing that along the way, we're not just going to be doing one engagement thing with every segment, that there will be multiple opportunities online or in person or community events, those kinds of things along the way. So this is what the actual calendar looks like. So as I mentioned, starting this summer, visioning, moving into our community priorities in the fall. And then we're going to take that information. We're actually going to synthesize the draft plan and take that out to the community next winter, early spring of 2025, with the final plan developed in kind of mid to late 2025. Our ultimate adoption deadline is December 31st of 2025. So a little bit more about each phase, what that looks like. So visioning would be number one, hosting a large citywide community visioning event here at City Hall or at the library. Making sure that we have youth representatives as well as making sure it's family friendly and engaging interactive exercises. And stay tuned on what those are. The consultant that we've hired is very creative when it comes to these types of things. So they've got different ways. It's not just sitting around the table talking about what you think the future of Lacey is. They have various different exercises and those kinds of things that they run people through. So really excited about what those will look like.
Who are you using for a consultant?
It's MIG. They're out of Berkeley, California. So this is the first time we've worked with them, but they came highly recommended and have done. They talked about Puyallup, they did Kent. Suburban, they're, I think really, their suburban communities is kind of their big focus.
I did some work in Renton as well.
Renton.
Yeah, I do have closer offices. While they're based out of Berkeley, I think our primary lead is out of Portland
Yeah.
area, so a little bit closer down.
So also tabling at our local events, so things like we got music at the park at Hunter Park, that's lunchtime, noonish on Wednesdays, I think. We've got the night market at the depot, which is every other Friday with the food trucks, and we'll have 3rd of July fireworks, we have a barbecue festival, we have Children's Day, which is in October. We'll definitely be hitting the big events coming up. And then also launching an online community survey, promoting that through kind of our typical city website, social media channels. So as we move into the next phase, this gets a little bit more kind of focused on the local neighborhood level. So the locations on that are to be determined, and also looking at how do we incentivize the community-based organizations, that's CBOs, businesses, et cetera, to participate. This would be when we launch that map-based survey that I talked about, Jeff, the second big bullet there. Conducting our outreach through community partners, so that's folks like our Economic Development Council, our South Sound Chamber of Commerce and those kinds of things, turning our focus also towards local schools. And then local business outreach as well. What we did last time, which was successful, which I anticipate we might do again, either at this phase or maybe when we actually get to the draft plan, is do what we've called a speakers bureau, where we went out to various different, we went to different communities. So we went to Panorama, we went to Jubilee, we went to Lions Clubs, Kiwanis, Rotaries, the service organizations, those kinds of folks as well. And that was really successful. So once we get to that draft plan stage, we're ready to unveil that. Again, another kind of bigger open house in that spring of 2025, using some of the interactivity that we have at kiosks here in the lobby and at the library. Launching a web-based plan. So I hope I told the Planning Commission this, but I'm not sure yet. Have I told you that we're going to do a web-based plan? Okay, so our final deliverable, our final plan will be essentially a website that will be our new comprehensive plan. And so our consultant will be developing an interface for us where you will actually be able to go onto the draft plan and comment and provide your feedback right on the plan itself. So it's another kind of interactive open house, web-based, that people will be able to see exactly what's being proposed, goals and policies, but then have that interface right on there to be able to provide their own kind of user comments on those. And then continuing our outreach to basically the stakeholders that we've established in the previous phases. Yep, final comp plan, web-based document that frames policies in an easy to understand way, allowing users to access the level of detail they want. A lot of times, comp plans tend to be adopted and then they sit on the shelf. They're not something that a community member refers to when they're, looking at how the city does business or anything like that. So making sure that this is really easy to understand and that it helps to eliminate silos. So the way our comprehensive plan is set up is you have all these different elements. So it's land use and transportation and the environment, economic development, is to make sure that this final document is produced such that those goals and policies kind of overlap each other. And really, if Grant were here, Grant would say everything's related to everything. And so we need to make sure that we show that in our comprehensive plan. And then also we have to, at least I think for, you know, making this draft something that will be acceptable in terms of, you know, getting through our state processes and stuff like that. So the State Department of Commerce has to certify our comprehensive plan is actually providing a PDF. So there will be a static PDF that you'll be able to export. So these are just, I'm not gonna go through all of these, but I think I've pretty much talked about all of them is all the different kind of things we'll be producing, boards and materials, a public engagement toolkit, which is kind of a meeting in the box kind of idea where, you know, you could host a meeting at your homeowners association or the like and be able to, you know, there's a script to read, a facilitator's guide, and basically all the materials that you would need to go along with that, and then all the stuff that goes with the web tools as well, the surveys, map-based survey, and then the final plan. So moving into branding, we have a name, it's Envision Tomorrow, the Lacey Comprehensive Plan Update. So for those of you that may remember, our last comprehensive plan update process was branded as Envision Lacey. And so we're keeping with that kind of Envision theme. This time, it's not just Envision Lacey, it's Envisioning Tomorrow. So a little bit more kind of forward thinking and that kind of thing, but yet it also kind of ties back into our previous engagement with the Envision Tomorrow tagline. And then here are, and this is where you can weigh in here tonight, 4 different logo concepts for our Envision Tomorrow. So I won't tell you what the staff's preference is, but there's the first one on the left, which is kind of the stylized Lacey city name around kind of the comp plan logo. This one here, the second one, is more, I would say, kind of closely aligned with our city logo that we have now with the kind of the lake and the mountains in the background. This one here is kind of an outline of, it's got a tree, and then the mountains and maybe a chimney or a building and a sun. And then this is to be like an eyeball. So this is.
The last one looks like an eyeball?
This one right here, where the cursor is, this green kind of teardrop looking thing is supposed to be maybe like a face. I'm not sure if it's in profile or if it's a face like looking at you and the rest of the face is covered by the tree.
I saw a lake.
It sounds different than animals on there.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little more up to scale with the house than.
Right?
Yeah. It's a big house.
This looks like houses, not mountains, but okay.
And then this last one, which is, I think, people with their hands raised or maybe.
It's
I don't know.
it's all possibility.
You might be showing your bias with your explanation of what they. To be
It feels like a stretch.
I mean, I like the second.
Yeah,
I do too.
You guys like more traditional?
I like the
I
tree.
like the one on this end. I think that's really, I think it's
I like the
much
first
more
one.
creative. It has
Do
motion
you
to
wanna
it.
take a vote with
And
hands?
this is.
Sure.
to go out to the public.
So,
correct?
so staff is gonna make the final decision on this, just FYI. But, if you had to choose, let's just go left to right, left hand, number one.
Well, a
I
couple
like that
things, I think the font and some of those is a little small unless these are gonna be on huge banners. People are gonna be squinting at this or maybe just ignore it because they're just like, oh, this is a symbol, a logo with some text, who cares?
Yeah.
So it might be worth blowing that up or having something to grab people,
Okay,
bring them in.
noted. And then you'll also notice that like
Right?
these colors are, you know, they're representative of what our city brand is. So you'll see like that green is the same color, that green that's on my PowerPoint, right? And so that's something to keep in mind too, is that we want it to be somewhat familiar because this is going to be its own website. And if it looked totally different than our current city website, I think we could have some issues. And so we're wanting to, while it's gonna be its own brand and its own logo, we want it to be somewhat familiar to what the kind of the city's previous branding efforts have been. Keep that in mind as well. So show of hands, who likes the one on the left? Two of you. That one,
Left.
Far left, that one there.
Can I vote? Cause I like that one.
okay.
It's, I just want to comment, it's more futuristic looking with the theme of Envision Tomorrow. I think it's more colorful. And I think it speaks to, I think the others are too limiting, the two middle are a little limiting on, and this is about housing, this is about all sorts of things. I really like the first one.
One
Okay,
one
long
thing,
shot.
as staff, we had kind of comments or concerns about, I don't know, is anybody colorblind? Can you tell us if that is? So that, you know, it could be that with
Well,
those
if you're red,
overlapping
green, colorblind,
colors.
it would
that-
be
It's colorblind and it's
yeah.
usually just red, green that you can't tell apart.
Okay.
Red, green looks gray.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
mine
to
is.
me,
different shades of gray.
To me, comp plan is
Oh, is that what
confusing because
that is?
comp can mean a couple
Yeah.
other things.
Okay.
So I think that
This
could
is
be
racing.
not
Those
clear.
for letters.
I guess.
I thought they were just colorful shapes to draw the eye. I had no idea that spelled Lacey.
Yeah, okay.
It does spell Lacey. Dave spelled.
Audience, we need the younger.
Oh, I would never have gotten it.
All right, how about the second one, the more traditional?
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
Just need Spencer's bigger font.
But I do
Yeah.
agree that, yeah, comprehensive could be like one line and then plan 2025.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just short it to comp plan and
No, comp-
increase the size of the,
But comp can mean multiple things, you know,
Not comprehensive.
fair enough.
Same thing.
Compensation, compensation.
No, that he said they're deciding, they really, I'm
Yeah.
not our
I like
opinions,
this.
It's good to get feedback, I mean, or, you know, it's not.
I think the second one, to me, and this is just me personally, so first of all, that logo there ties more into the city logo, so I
It
think the
does.
connection is gonna be there. But the other thing is, what I'm getting out of that is that as we're producing this comprehensive plan, we're going to be preserving the heritage of Lacey.
Okay.
Which I think is also important.
Well, and the fact that the trees factor so prominently, we have been saying that over and over, save the trees,
Right, we're
tree
Tree City.
city.
Yep.
I think that's such a compelling
People have been telling you.
subliminal message, yeah.
But we are talking about housing and there's not a single little house
Yeah,
thing
it-
in that at all. It
it's-
looks like it's a environmental
Yeah.
logo, not a comprehensive
Yeah.
plan
So that's
logo.
interesting you say that. I viewed those as two roof lines,
Too.
not as mountains.
Me too.
Nothing in there looks like a mountain to me.
On the
On the second one,
I thought
yeah.
they were house peaks as well.
Yeah, I thought that's it.
Well,
We had
another-
trees and a roof line.
Third one is the
Third one,
loser.
But that's interesting, you saw that on the second.
What is the loser?
Third one is.
Yeah.
Anybody for the third one?
What's a dot like?
She likes that eyeball.
Single line drawing.
Anybody else at this table is also a fan of that one?
I like that one too.
It's like an etch-a-sketch gone wild.
I like that it's a contrast to the city of
Dating myself.
Lacey.
Yeah.
No, I understand exactly.
How about anybody for the last one?
Me, I like that. I like that one because I think it says this is something new.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
And I think it looks like the YMCA. Right?
It's like Zentangle.
Or a Windows logo or something.
Oh, a cat with its tail.
So what's the city on?
Yeah, what's the city doing?
We don't know yet. We're gonna be meeting with them tomorrow. We just got this. We've had it for less than a week, so we're just kind of running it around and seeing what people think.
What do you like, Ryan?
Well, the staff,
That's
I like the third one. I think we could change this a little bit to be a little bit more, a little less stylized and maybe a little bit
The
more.
third one with the tree and the house and the.
But the staff really likes this one. I think the first one with, the idea, I think, could be that maybe we outline these letters to make them look a little bit more like
I
Lacey.
wouldn't, I would never see those as letters.
Yeah,
I would say that these are all first goes,
Yeah.
so stylistically, these are just kind of just different directions that we could go in, and then I think our next discussion is gonna be more, maybe we like these two, so then we're gonna send them out to do multiple more iterations of it, so.
Yep, yep.
These are not by any
Not the
stretch.
final. These are just,
Does the city have a branded font that they use or?
no. I mean, if you want it, I mean, really, it's Times New Roman, I guess, if it.
Times New Roman,
Real
just
edgy.
like everybody else.
Yeah, but comp could be the lesson. I caution you about abbreviating that.
Yeah, I would too,
I
yeah.
can see that.
The L is also backward in that one.
It looks like it's an upside down T to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's, I don't think any of these
Which
will be
one
easy
looks like an
to
upside
final
down
result.
T, the one, the lines one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I like that one, I'm sorry. It's the nicest one.
Does printing costs come into factor because of the more colors, the higher the cost?
It's
We're
gonna be
all
online.
online, web-based.
And if you wanna PDF it, that's gonna be on you, I guess. City won't be paying that.
So
I'm dating me. How many colors made the difference?
Yeah.
this is the last slide that I have. Next steps, first of all, reviewing the logos concept, so stay tuned on what that final logo is gonna be like. But then also what they're gonna do is develop this, what they call a brand guide. So it's like all the colors that go into it and those kinds of things. So we're staying consistent with all the materials that we develop. The draft community engagement plan, which I mentioned, is due out pretty much any time at this point. Identifying our target audience outreach strategies. So again, that'll come to the planning commission. I'm not exactly sure when. We just wanted to get this ahead of you so you could understand when this engagement plan comes to you, what to expect out of it. But I would imagine that's gonna be in the next month or so as we kick into high gear in the summer. And then making sure that we're preparing for that phase one engagement. So planning our community engagement kind of kickoff visioning event here at City Hall or over at the library, developing that online survey, and then the supplemental materials that we can carry around to all the various community events and all that kind of stuff. So with that, happy to get any more feedback at this point. Again, we'll come back to you with that engagement plan. Don't have that quite ready to go yet, but want to give you kind of a primer on what's going to be in there. So happy to answer any questions or.
Quick comment, just listening to the diversity of the audiences you want to reach, something occurred to me that Jenny hosts these quarterly meetings with HOA boards. You see a mix of age and gender and ethnicity and everything else. When I go to those meetings, it just runs the gamut. I think
Yeah.
you might get a really nice mix
Yep.
at a quarterly City of Lacey HOA board.
Yeah, I've been to several of those before. Yeah, happy to, and that too is like when we get to that kind of speakers bureau kind of part of that, when we have, here, this is kind of how it, what schools and policies are shaping up to be like and those kinds of things. That's really when we have some more specific information, when those kinds of presentations are really useful. So we'll keep that in mind for sure.
Thank you, Ryan. I mean, it sounds good. I
Okay.
think it's a good outline, and I think your goals are on point for, the way our culture and society have changed since the last time we did this.
Yep, I mean, the good news is, when we did this 10 years ago, we didn't have any consultant help. We didn't have a lot of the staff that we do now. So I feel in a lot of ways that we're blessed to be able to do more now than we've ever had. And our community's changed a lot in 10 years. And so it'll be interesting to see what the feedback is that we start getting back.
Yeah, last time we did this, we were showing up at community events with paper maps. And-
Yeah.
So-
For sure, for sure.
But I like that consultants like more of a suburbia kind of feel. We're not like a downtown Seattle kind of thing.
That's right.
It's just so that those don't necessarily work for us.
Right. Right, yep, and this is very much gonna be tailored for our needs and not, for Colmar or Seattle or whatever.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Well,
So
thanks.
before you leave, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
In the agenda, it lists the next meeting is June 5. On my calendar, it's June 12, and on the last tile in tonight's packet, it's June 12.
June 12th is the next meeting.
Okay.
Yep,
Second.
Yep.
Can't have a second Wednesday on a fifth.
yep, yep, June 12th.
Okay,
Have
thank
5
you.
days in this month.
Okay, so for the record, it's June 12th, if any of you are looking at the agenda.
Have fun at
All
the
right.
concert.
Yeah, thanks you all.
Yeah,
See
enjoy.
you then.
Enjoy.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you, Ryan.
You need me to do anything?
Yeah, that's gonna make.
All right, Hans, you get to have the floor.
All right, so this is gonna be really an introductory update to our critical areas regulations, if I can make this go full screen. There we go. Yeah, so along with our comprehensive plan, which is updated on a 10-year rolling basis, our critical areas regulations also have to undergo an update or review, I should say, every 10 years. So we are in that timeline. We last updated our critical areas in 2017 was the last kind of full-scale review. So we're fast approaching that timeline again. So this is just starting to look at it, getting that going. So yeah, And this is, I think I actually touched on a little bit of this, but this is mandated by Commerce. So the Growth Management Act requires cities to adopt regulations protecting critical areas in order to preserve the natural environment, wildlife, habitat, and sources of fresh drinking water. And then our RCO goes into it a little bit deeper and specifies that cities shall include the best available science in policies and development regulations, which is good news in some ways, is that that is developed and identified by different departments and agencies that are well-versed in these different topics, and then they provide guidance and recommendations on how to update our code. Required elements have to do with wetland areas, habitat conservation areas, flood hazard areas, aquifer recharge areas, and geologically sensitive areas. Within the Lacey Municipal Code, we have chapters that directly address each one of those currently. Not quite the same names, but the content is one and the same within them. And then we do have within the City of Lacey code a definition of best available science. It states current scientific information used in the process to designate, protect, or restore critical areas that is derived from a valid scientific process as defined in Washington, different codes. And then there's some additional criteria that I did want to point out here from those codes, that's peer reviewed, repeatable methods, consistent and logical, quantitative and statistical, contextual, and thoroughly referenced. And these are all further defined. This information is linked within the packet, so you can find it there if you want to read more on exactly what each one of these means and the definitions behind them. And then also it goes on to state that Commerce works with state agencies to identify resources that meet the criteria for best available science. And those resources really are the Department of Ecology, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Department of Natural Resources. They are really considered the leads when it comes to these different areas of study. As far as scientific research and the information that's put out, they really kind of set the standard. And then it's for municipalities to really kind of take that information and make sure that our codes and regulations are consistent with those findings and that guidance. So ecology really focuses on wetlands, aquifers, and frequently flooded areas. Department of Fish and Wildlife looks at, or they maintain actually a priority habitat and species map. So you can actually look around where these are and figure out how to kind of plan around them or with them. They also put out information on water resources, inventory areas, riparian management zones. And then also in more recent years, there's been an additional emphasis on protecting salmon and salmon habitats. So that's something that we're gonna take a little bit of a closer look at as part of this update to make sure that that's all still captured within our code. And then Department of Natural Resources, their area of expertise within this is geologically hazardous areas. So the Department of Commerce also puts out a checklist essentially every year that captures the latest legislative acts and any updates, and it kind of summarizes all of that into a packet. And one of the initial steps in this update process is running through that checklist and comparing that with our different codes to make sure that our codes have information that speak to each one of those elements. The other nice thing about the checklist, I think I actually attached that as one of the attachments as part of the packet tonight. You can flip through that if you wish. It has a bunch of links to our codes where you could actually takes you to where each one of those topics is referenced or discussed. But the other part about that is that it creates a list of all of the updates or new findings or revised best available science since our last update. So I'm not going to read all of these, but all these bullets are references of new reports or studies or findings that should be reflected within our critical areas. Yeah.
So some of these reports are 2 years older than our last comp plan. So are they going to be considered still BAS worthy?
So one more time?
So I'm looking at some of the studies on there, and there's on the sheet that they're from 2018 and our last comp plan was in 2016. So I'm wondering, is that still considered the best available science?
Yeah, I mean, some of this dates back to the late 90s even. It's just where areas have been updated and there are new findings. That's not to say that Yeah, so when new information is out there and it's found to change what is currently the current practice, that's what these references are. But there's plenty of scientific research out there that is still current today from even beyond this. These are just the new findings that have come out since the last critical areas update and review that we've done.
And are these written through the lens of these agencies and how they should be implemented? Or is this just they're compiling the best available science and saying, hey, this is like an official list you can use or select from?
It's written through these agencies, so each one of them will have findings, they'll have recommendations on how to interpret the findings, and then how to actually incorporate that into the code. So they do a good amount of the legwork for you, which is quite nice, and they are the identified agencies by Commerce of where we should really be getting this information from. So it takes a lot of that kind of finding what the best resource is for these topics, depending on what that topic is.
But they allow a lot of local control. As long as you're meeting the intent of what they want you to do.
I will caveat though that when there's a deviation from what's expressed within the recommendations, we have to back that up with
Yes.
scientific justification, local studies, evidence as to why we're deviating from it. And I will say that while these are state level agencies, they do targeted research for kind of different regions within the state. So their findings are right sized, at least to our region, the ones that we're pulling from. So that is a good point, but something to keep in mind. So we don't do a lot of the research typically within the city. That's
Yeah, I
not
wouldn't
our
expect that.
purview. It's
It's very
we
expensive.
leave it to the experts.
Yeah.
Unless, you know, we'd have to bring in consultants and go through a very
To that point, though, do they tell you, you know, he's right, some of this stuff like the groundwater aquifer
Mhm.
quality standards are from 1990. There's a lot of talk about that now. So presumably, if they bring out a new standard in 2025,
Mhm.
they're gonna tell you about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll have to incorporate, so do they sort of give you a heads up, we're working on this? Or not?
so.
We're revising this 1990.
To some degree, and this is a full scale review,
Uh-huh.
but occasionally there are really pertinent things that do come along outside of the 10-year update cycle.
Right, yeah,
And in those instances, we look at those and figure out if they need to get worked into the plan.
okay.
We actually recently had a flood hazard and FEMA mapping that came up that actually changed our interpretations. And even though we were outside the cycle, that was something that was
You
worked
pulled
into our
in,
code.
yeah, okay.
Because it was important to be addressed as sooner than our next cycle. So that does happen as well. This is just to kind of catch all of those
Sure.
other things that may have fallen through the cracks or we didn't allocate time for within our planning period, so. And then as far as next steps, really, so this is just an introduction at this point. Staff review is really the next step. So we're gonna look at all of those bulleted items that I was talking about, figure out where they match up with our code, figure out if there's gaps within our current code, and then figure out ways to better address or implement the new findings within our existing code. And then from there, we actually are supposed to send a draft of that on June 30th to Commerce, and they provide a review and feedback and go through everything and make sure that what staff's finding is consistent with the code as well. So there's two different layers of review that happen there. And then they'll send it back to us still in draft form. And at that point, that's when we run through probably another iteration of this where we actually get into it a little bit. And then, so we do a round of review and then ultimately get to a recommendation and then pass it up to council for another round of review and adoption. And I think that's, yeah, those are all my slides. So this is really just a high level introduction at this point. There are more links to all these topics in the staff report. So if you want to read more about any subject of interest, it should be linked in there. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was reading through the documents for the critical areas, at the very last one, it says, do you have monitoring and adaptive management program for your CAO? Which says no, but I don't know if this is something that could be considered for that, because I teach in Olympia, and our students are part of the South Sound Green Network. And so I know through Nisqually River Education Program, the Chehalis Basin Education consortium, South Sound Green, we do water quality testing, so we're going out to these critical areas. We're gathering all that data, which I think would maybe fall under monitoring and then sending that back to the state. So students are going out all over a region,
Yeah.
checking the water, looking at the riparian zones, looking at the salmon. At my site, we even put out leaf packs, and that's right here at Chambers Lake, where we're even collecting macroinvertebrates and counting to see like the health of the water in the streams. So I don't know if that's something, you know, and there's grants that fund the students to do that work. Are we able to tap on or into those or collaborate with the kids and kind of like build that excitement about?
Yeah, no, actually, our current climate lead used to actually work in water resources and do a lot of that work. Lindsay, I think, has presented to you guys quite a bit. So, yeah, by no means is this purely a planning department process. So we're actually definitely going to be communicating and working with all of our different departments because these subjects do cross departments for sure. So there is definitely going to be we're still very early on in the just kind of figuring out where we're at and then figuring out what we need to look at to understand what might need to change. But from there will definitely be recommendations on how to update our codes, but also just kind of day-to-day practices to meet any kind of gaps that we may currently have.
Well, and I know the last time we did this, the regulations had changed significantly from the time before. And this time it's more incremental and evolutionary rather than being revolutionary. So it should be a little bit easier process.
Yeah, that's a great point. The 2017 update was a pretty massive overhaul of where our critical areas were previously. This one, a lot of the new science or information that comes out is really about interpreting existing science. So there is some new science out there, but a lot of it is guidance on how to better interpret what's already been out there. So it's figuring still how to kind of right size that and make that fit within our current code.
Okay, any more questions for Hans? Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Absolutely.
Look at this. It's
What's
only
going
7
on?
o'clock. You sure you don't want to talk for another hour?
I'm sure we'll have future meetings where we'll go much later, so.
Probably the.
Cash in for later.
Yeah, I'll bank that one if I can.
All right then. Does anybody have anything for the good of the order?
I have a quick question. So with that change to the 12th rather than the 5th, is that going to then affect the 2-week schedule from that point forward? Are we
Nope,
gonna
I just didn't
continue?
read a calendar properly. We're good. I think it's all the same. It should be
Okay.
anything. I think. it's
So
the fifth.
it's just gonna be 2 weeks after that? Okay.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
It's the
26th.
fifth and I think I did it right when I sent out reminders. Just not
Just,
when I was
you
doing.
know,
meetings.
These months,
Second and the fourth Wednesday.
Extra
Oh, I
days.
was-
on
Those extra days a month.
Okay.
Except when they have it, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
these months with the 5th week,
Yeah.
you know,
Screw
if we just
everything up.
eliminated the 5th week.
We can just
Be a
standardize
shorter
everything.
year.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And Jeff, I just wanted
Yes,
the
yes.
the guests that we had last week and the feedback she gave back. I was wondering, is that something that is an outreach to like many members of the community, or did she formulate that herself?
That was so interesting,
Well,
wasn't it?
so-
Very good.
So
I love
it
her
is something
style.
that's in the public record. You know, because she did submit it to the planning commission and I thought it was very insightful.
Comprehensive too.
Very
Yes.
comprehensive,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, I sent an email out because it's very representative of things that I hear from other young people.
Mhm.
And so I think that's definitely things that we need to keep in mind in the future because we're building the future for them, right? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you very much.
Wow, when have we gotten out in an hour before? That's just never.
Okay, all of your people at home think you're in a meeting for another hour?